Welcome to the Sorcery Podcast, your sacred space to delve into spiritual tools, topics, and practices that will illuminate your path of soul remembering and healing. I'm your host, Ligia Costa, a soul guide, alchemist, soul writing coach, and the creator of the Trust Pathway. I'm deeply grateful to have you here with me. Together, we will embark on a profound exploration of self-discovery and healing, unlocking the secrets that lie within. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sorcery Podcast. And today, let's explore something that so many of us struggle with, but somehow there is this taboo to talk about it, to talk about how we get affected during the holiday season, how we can get really overwhelmed, really not looking forward to, that Hallmark type of movie or advert where we see the family gathering around the table, gathering around the Christmas tree, sharing gifts. That was like my dream when I was young. I always dreamt of having this huge dinner with all family members and gathering around the Christmas tree, Christmas songs in the background. And I still love that. Don't get me wrong, I still love that. But I know as an adult that I don't have the capacity to hold space for so many people, to cook for hours on end, to deal with screams of children running around. I know I don't have that capacity, and I know I'm not alone on this, but still I feel people don't share this too much with others. There is some sort of taboo still around it. And for highly sensitive people, the holiday season can really trigger our nervous systems in ways that feel almost too overwhelming. And while I would love nothing more than, wave a magic wand and remove all the stress and pain and anxiety that can come up with the holidays, the truth is that kind of magic doesn't really exist if we don't do the work within ourselves. So the magic is really in our ability to set healthy boundaries. Because if you are a highly sensitive person like me, you need those boundaries, right? Because boundaries are essential, especially during the holiday season, because it's the way we protect our energy. So I see it not just a thing that is important, but actually something that is crucial to our well-being. And stick around, because at the end of this episode, I will share a little something to help you take your boundary setting practice even further in a way that feels soul nourishing and empowering. So don't go anywhere, just stick around. Let's start this conversation. So, as I shared many times here on the podcast, as HSPs, we tend to absorb the emotions and energy of those around us, right? But during the holidays, when the world seems to be vibrating with this heightened activity, expectation, joy, and sometimes stress as well, it's so easy to lose ourselves in the midst of this noise. And when we are lost in the middle of this noise, we often lose touch with our needs, right? With what we want or what we are comfortable with what we have capacity for, because we feel we have to please others. So the people pleasing in us comes through, and we end up going with the flow of everyone else's demands and desires and emotions, shutting down our own desires and emotions and needs. And not only that, it's kind of we feel this responsibility to help others, to meet everyone's expectations, to hold others, right? During this time. And what often happens is that we end up feeling drained, feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes even triggered in ways that we feel out of control, and we can't pinpoint exactly what was the thing that triggered us. What was the thing that all of a sudden we changed moods from white to black and we don't understand why. And I have a previous episode around dealing with burnout as a highly sensitive person. So go back to that episode and have a listen because it's really, really helpful. And I feel it merges really well with today's episode. So to me, boundaries are our lifeline. They are very important to everyone, but for us as highly sensitive people, it's our lifeline. It's what protects us from the demands and the craziness of a world that is not made for us. And that is the truth. We have to remember we are part of a small percentage, around 20% of the human beings in this planet. We are a very small percentage of a world that feels things very, very deeply. Not everyone is like us. As I said, we are a very small percentage. So the world is fueled by non-HSPs and caters for non-HSPs, not people like us, right? So having clear boundaries, it's what is going to protect us. Now, I want you to imagine your boundaries as a fence, but not just any fence, but one that marks the space between you and the world. It's not separation, and that is what I feel it gets a lot of mixed up when people talk about the boundaries or think about boundaries. It's not a wall that you put up and is not a way of you separating from other people. No, it's just a mark. It's just to mark your space to the rest of the world. Because if you think about a fence, look around at your neighbors. Even if they don't have or you have in your neighborhood physical fences, you maybe have small walls or hedges that separates your house, right? Your space from your neighbor's space. And you know that unless you have a reason to go to your neighbors and knock on the door to deliver a parcel that the postman left on your door and ask you to keep it for your neighbor, or if you want to ask for eggs or flour, you know that you just don't invade your neighbor's space. That's their space. And you also want your neighbors to respect your space. So it's the same thing with boundaries. That's the way I see it. This fence or these hedges or small walls or even gate is what keeps your energy contained and protected. And it shows where your emotional space and your emotional capacity ends and where others begin. And just like a fence can have a gate that opens or closes, your boundaries can also be fluid, right? It can be adaptable. It can be adjustable to your needs in the moment. It doesn't have to be set in stone, because there are times where, for instance, your fence might be just a simple stone path that's barely there, just enough to keep things flowing. And there are times, especially in occasions like the holiday season, when you need to reinforce those fences. And I know that as a HSP that wants to make everyone happy and sometimes ignores their own needs, reinforcing those boundaries or those fences, it might feel a bit off. It might feel a bit uncomfortable, especially if you have wounds around fear, rejection, fear being abandoned, fear of not being loved. And so you might have this connection of if I set my boundaries and communicate my boundaries, people will reject me. People will say or think bad things about me. They will say that I'm cold and I don't have a heart or something. But what you need to understand is that boundaries aren't about controlling others or forcing others to behave in a certain way. That's not the reason why we set boundaries, at least healthy boundaries. And that's why I always say healthy boundaries rather than just boundaries. Because if you think or if you put up boundaries in the sense of I'm separating myself from others or I'm closing off to others, that's a very toxic and unhealthy way of setting boundaries. In a way that you're just closing it off, you're not communicating, and you're trying in a way control or force other people to behave in a certain way around you. But if you see boundaries as being about protecting what is yours, and that means your energy, your emotions, your time, your space, then you see boundaries as a way of communicating to others how you will interact with them. Not by telling them how to behave, but by showing them how you will respond to their actions. By showing them what you are open to and what you don't allow, okay? So as we enter this holiday season, I think it's important to take a moment to reflect on the boundaries that we need. Because we don't often think about this until it's too late. And then we end up feeling so resentful and so frustrated during a season that is meant to be all about nurturing and being peaceful and calm and joyful. So as we walk into this season now, let's reflect before it's too late on the boundaries that we need, whether it's time, energy, or emotional space. We all have the right to define and communicate these limits, okay? And you don't need to feel bad about this. It's your right as a human being. So I would like to dive into a few common boundary issues that can come up for us, especially as highly sensitive people, during the holiday season. And I would like to invite you to reflect on these and ask yourself, how can I create boundaries that work for me in these situations? Because when you open yourself to these questions, you are open yourself to awareness. And we know that awareness is the first step for us to grow and change as people and to make changes in our life. So if you never question these things, you might not have the awareness, and then you end up not understanding why you feel so overwhelmed, why you feel so upset, why you end up resenting people, and why you're not enjoying the holiday season as everyone else, right? So let's take a moment and reflect on this, okay? So the first common boundary issue is time together. And what I mean by this is, how much time do you want to spend socializing? Because we know the holiday season is about that, right? It's about dinner parties at work. It's about meeting friends for a coffee, exchanging gifts. It's about visiting family members and then obviously having the Christmas dinner and Boxing Day dinner. And then we have New Year's Eve. Maybe you're going to spend New Year's Eve with your family. Maybe you go into a party with your friends. It's a very socializing season. Maybe the most socializing you'll do in a whole year. Because if you are anything like me and other highly sensitive people, you spend a lot of time, on your own, doing things that are not as social, if that makes sense. So it's really important that you have awareness of your capacity for socializing, okay? Do you feel pressure to attend every family gathering or every party? So setting clear limits around how long you'll spend at an event, for instance, can help you prevent social burnout. You might decide, for example, that you'll only spend 2 hours at a social gathering, or that you will only attend gatherings that are, for instance, outdoors or in public spaces or open spaces, where you can more easily step away if you need to, where you don't feel so caged in. And I also would like to remember you that saying no is an act of self-care. And there are ways of saying no that you might feel more comfortable with. For instance, if someone invites you to a family gathering or a party and you just realize that you had so many invites or you have so many things booked and you just can't bring yourself to go to another one, you can say something like, "Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, but I have quite a full schedule and unfortunately I will not be able to make it," right? But if you want to say just a no, no thank you, it's valid and no is a complete sentence. However, due to, the joyful, caring theme of the holiday season, you might be a bit more gentle and just be respectful, thank the other person, acknowledge their effort to reach out to you, and then just politely say that you can't make it, okay? The second common boundary issue is time alone. And we know that as highly sensitive people, we need, and it's a need, right? It's as important as breathing and eating and keeping hydrated. We need regular moments of solitude in order to recharge. And during the holiday season, when there is so much going on, it's so easy to forget to carve out that time for ourselves. So try and set aside an hour, for instance, each evening before bed to ground yourself. Or try to keep a weekend day completely free, just for your own hobbies, your own activities, without a schedule, without a deadline, without meeting anyone's expectation, just for you. Because this time is not just a luxury, it's a necessity for your well-being. Especially if you are spending the next weeks being a social butterfly, which is so not what you are normally. You need that time to recharge. You need that time to reset, because you are absorbing so much stimuli around you that if you don't take the time to just be on your own energy and rest, it's gonna be very, very hard for you in terms of regulating your nervous system. So this is really important, okay? The other common boundary issue is about difficult conversations. For instance, politics, religion, personal beliefs. These topics can become very heated sometimes during the holiday season, especially with family. So it's really important to decide in advance what your boundaries are regarding these discussions. You might need to say something like, "I prefer not to engage in conversation about politics this year," or "If someone brings up a topic that feels triggering to me, I will politely change the subject." Or you can decide quietly not to engage, or remove yourself from the conversation if you can, okay? The other common boundary issue is food and body commentary. And I'm going to tell you that, as a Portuguese, in our culture, this happens so much. I believe British people are a bit more polite, but I'm also aware this podcast reaches a lot of people that are not British. And my roots are Portuguese, so I grew up and it still happens. It's a cultural thing that people make comments about our bodies and we never ask for anything. They just, poof, come out. "Oh, you look fat this year. Oh, you put up weight." And yeah, it's just, it can be a bit much. And when we are highly sensitive, these comments are especially challenging. So try to remember that you don't owe anyone an explanation for what you eat or how you choose to care for your body or what you wear. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Your body, doesn't matter the shape of it, doesn't matter the size of your clothes, it's sacred. And you have the right to set a boundary around how others speak about it. For example, if someone comments on your body or comments on your food choices, like makes a comment about you been drinking too much or you've been eating too many sweets, simply say, I'm not comfortable discussing that, and walk away from the conversation if you need to. Just show people you're not controlling what they say or think. We can't really do that. Everyone has their free will, and it's not the point of setting boundaries. We show people what we are open to and what we are not. So just say, I'm not comfortable discussing that, or say something like, I don't remember ever asking for your opinion. I know that's a bit rude, but maybe try and be a bit more gentle, and just walk away. Just don't engage. Just show them that you're not open to the discussion, because you don't owe anyone an explanation. Another common boundary issue is finances. Money can be very stressful, right, during the holiday season. Especially as HSPs, we love to show how we care and think about people. And the way we show it is normally we buy gifts. And we buy gifts that are meaningful. We know what other people like, what other people have been talking about. We pay attention for what they say. We pay attention to every comment they make and things they share, dreams they share. And we try as much as we can within our budget to gift someone something that they really appreciate. We don't buy gifts just for the sake of ticking a name. We buy gifts because we want people to feel loved and appreciated. And we normally don't even look at expenses, right? Because we're like, oh, I know this person will love this, so I'm going to get it for her. But it's really important to set financial boundaries that align with your values and your current financial situation. Just to avoid, overwhelm, especially on the months after, because sometimes we tend to go through these easy ways of shopping for others or for ourselves, which is, using payment plans and credit cards. And then we end up spending the following year just paying out all these debts that we incurred during this holiday season. So whether it's limiting how much you spend on gifts or politely declining to participate in expensive activities, being clear on your financial boundaries can help reduce holiday anxiety. Because there is this side of, the stress around finances during the holiday season, but there is also the other spectrum of stress around money, which is the expectations. I want to be able to buy my children or buy so-and-so something, but my money doesn't allow me to do that, or my finances don't allow me to do that. And then obviously it's very, very overwhelming. So setting these boundaries will give you sort of a budget that you can spend on each person. And then you can even prioritize the people by how close you are with them. And just try to avoid this stress, because it really takes away the joy of this season. And unfortunately, we are in such a consumerism world. Everything is geared to people buying stuff. And we start with the Black Friday, which is no longer just a Black Friday event. It starts about a month before Black Friday. And it gets to a point that it can become really, really overwhelming. When you set these boundaries, it's really important that you remember that you're just not protecting yourself from this outside stimuli, okay? You are also showing yourself compassion. You are creating space for your needs, space for your desires to be honored. And that is the most precious gift that you can give your soul. Now, if you've been listening to this episode and you feel a deep resonance with the idea of setting boundaries, but also recognizing how challenging it can be, I have something special for you. My Master the Power of Setting Healthy Boundaries course is designed specially to help highly sensitive people like you navigate the complexities of boundary setting with grace, with confidence, and with compassion to yourself and to others. So this course will teach you how to identify, for instance, your unique boundary archetype. Did you know that you have an archetype that is preventing you from setting boundaries? So you will find that out. We'll teach you how to set boundaries with confidence and compassion, and to recognize the signs of successful boundary setting. When you start to implement and communicate these healthy boundaries, how do you know these boundaries are being successful, are being heard? So I will teach you how to recognize that. You will learn practical tools that go beyond theory, that will help you to implement boundaries that serve your highest good, not just for this holiday season or any holiday season, but for every season of your life. Because as highly sensitive people, we need to set boundaries. It's our lifeline, as I said previously. We need this. So in this course, you will learn how to recognize where your boundaries need to be set, how to communicate them effectively, and how to enforce them without feeling guilty or triggering this fear of being rejected, not being loved, not being accepted. And I've poured my heart and my soul into creating this course because I know how powerful it can be for those of us who are sensitive to the world around us. I've been through this. I had to work on my boundaries, especially with my close family, with my birth family, in order for my mental health to be protected. And I know it's not easy. And I know that you can't really control how people perceive this decision or how they respond to it. But as long as you do it from a place of compassion and clear communication, you're fine. You are fine. And you need this. So if you feel ready to take this next step in your healing journey, I would love to support you. Just go to my website www.ligiacosta.co.uk/workwithme, and you will find all the courses, and the Master the Power of Setting Healthy Boundaries course is one of the top ones that's there. It's only £22.22. Really, just £22.22. And this is something that you can take away with you for the rest of your life. It's a learning and a tool in your self-care toolkit, not just for the holiday season, but for the rest of your life. So I will leave the link in the show notes of this episode. Otherwise, just go to my website, www.ligiacosta.co.uk. As we wrap up today's episode, I would like to encourage you to reflect on your boundaries. Take a moment to ask yourself, what do I need this holiday season to feel safe, peaceful, and aligned with my soul's truth? Because boundaries aren't just about saying no. As I said, this is not a way of us separating from the world or us closing off to the world. They are about saying yes to what matters the most, which is your peace, which is your energy and your well-being. Before I love you and leave you, I'll pull a card from the Trust Journaling deck. And the card that I pulled is from the Thrive Suite. And the soul inquiry is, what is the gap between here, what I have, what I am, and there, what I want? What is the gap between here, what I have, what I am, and there, what I want? And the affirmation is, I have everything I need within. And you can use this soul inquiry and ask yourself, what is the gap between the boundaries that I have here and there? The boundaries that I need or that I want, right? And I think that's the reason this card came up, because there is a gap right now that you need to work on in order to be able to set healthy boundaries and protect yourself from the overwhelm of the holiday season. Thank you so much for sharing this sacred space with me today. And as we move through this holiday season, please, please, please remember that your sensitivity is not a burden. It is a gift. And it's really important to protect it with the care it deserves. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Sorcery Podcast and for holding space for this conversation. It is truly magical to be able to walk with you on this journey of soul healing and inner transformation. If you resonated with this episode and found it valuable, I would be grateful if you could leave a review on iTunes. Your feedback helps me reach more souls searching for guidance and healing. For more guidance and soul wisdom to support soul awakening women through the journey of alchemy, please visit my website www.ligiacosta.co.uk. Love and healing to all. See you on the next one.